Let me get this out of the way right now. No matter what the future holds in video games over the next decade or two, I do not think, nor do I want to see, physical games going the way of the dodo bird. They are not only important historically, they are also important when it comes to ownership. Sure, the license agreement on a physical game can disagree, but regardless, it is the only way to play a game if and when the internet is simply not around. Without the internet, you can't download a digital game, or stream them, or access older purchases. But with a physical copy, it's always there so long as your hardware works. That's the idea, anyways, and as such, I am not advocating for anyone to simply forget about that medium of delivery. I also don't think anyone is actually forgetting about it, including the folks making games and the ones making the platforms to play them on. This needs to be prefaced because everyone, and I do mean seemingly everyone, is embracing a future that includes game streaming as a primary way to play and deliver games. Microsoft just recently announced their plans, starting in 2019, to offer their form of game streaming to many different devices with Project xCloud. This includes phones, tablets, laptops, computers, etc. Google, just last week, announced that Chrome itself would be supporting game streaming, coming out in the next year as well, with betas already existing for certain titles like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Sony's PlayStation offers a streaming service today, albeit just for their back catalog rather than anything new on PlayStation 4. Nintendo Switch in Japan has support for the streaming of titles like Resident Evil 7 and the aforementioned Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Of all of the major players, only Nintendo doesn't appear to have any public-facing plans when it comes to game streaming. Yes, the Switch can and does do it with certain companies in Japan, but the idea of offering a broader service on the whole has, as of yet, to be manifested. Nintendo is not a company that likes to follow trends, mind you. A lot of companies are heavily invested in VR, not Nintendo. Sony left the handheld gaming space and focused on their highly successful home console, not Nintendo. Xbox and PlayStation 4 charge more for their online offerings and then include things like achievements, 100% backups through multiple methods of every single title no matter what, and local voice chat with full messaging systems, support of multimedia apps, and web browsing. But not Nintendo, when it comes to Switch, anyways. Nintendo likes to either ignore the direction gaming seems to be heading in to do their own thing, or they happen to eventually get into that direction way after everyone else has already been doing it for many years. I don't think video game streaming is an avenue Nintendo should be ignoring anymore. Now, let me get this out of the way again. It's fine if you don't like the idea of streaming games, that you don't have the internet connection to do it, and you're extremely worried about streaming game existence leading to having no more physical games or platforms. I get these concerns. I appreciate them. I understand them. I know that it is concerning that video game streaming does not provide a superior experience compared to playing games locally. I get it. I understand it. And I agree those experiences in the way you'd like to play them should not go away. But you can indeed have your cake and eat it too. If there was one company that would stubbornly not leave the physical space behind, you can bet it's Nintendo. So even if Nintendo did support streaming services for game delivery, including their own games, I think most of us can count on Nintendo's stubbornness alone to ensure that these concerns are more or less an aside. Game streaming offers many benefits to those that wish to go down that route. It can lead to less concern over having to always buy the latest and greatest hardware, as long as your internet, local network, and the system or platform you're playing on can handle the transfer speeds. You can play any game on the planet at near top-end settings. This makes the Switch capable of getting literally every single game under the sun. It can also make games more affordable. Right now, the cheapest way to try before you buy is a service like Redbox, which has a very limited selection of games. Next up after that, it's probably GameFly, at least here in the United States, and that can be a bit pricey, and it requires the shipping of physical copies to your house and then back to the company, and it just gets really confusing and can take too long to get your games compared to what a streaming service can do. Then there is the act of simply buying the game and returning it for less value than you pay for it. None of these are ideal, and as video game renting has become a service that is essentially untenable for most video game purchasers, a streaming service provides the perfect solution. You can rent games by the day, hours, weeks, months, and even years. The downside is beating a game you don't own, but the upside is you may have done so without paying $60 for the full version of the game, saving yourself money just like when I used to rent games from places like Blockbuster as a kid. Thus, it helps make gaming more affordable and even opens up the doors to a Netflix-style service that could make gaming even cheaper and more accessible for all. Remember, despite Netflix existing, DVDs and Blu-rays are still a thing. So are movie theaters. So are premium TV networks like HBO and Starz. So is local cable and satellite. Everything can exist in nearly perfect harmony to please almost every type of consumer. The drawbacks are obvious, and I don't think I need to keep going over them. But they're also non-existent so long as streaming isn't the only delivery method for video games. Nintendo is slow at adopting many things, but as being proven in Japan with games like Odyssey and Resident Evil 7, Nintendo isn't exactly closed off to the idea of streaming games. If they could develop their own in-house platform for it, it could become a service that keeps Nintendo, regardless of the hardware they release, always competitive. Sure, you can't stream games well on the go or over hotel Wi-Fi when you're on a business trip, but you don't really have to. Just having the option to play any single game on your platform when you're at home is an option that currently does not exist with Switch. Imagine that Red Dead Redemption 2, coming out later this month, would be available on Switch even if only when you're at home and docked with your TV. Having that as an option is better than not. Telling consumers just go buy a PlayStation 4 to do that when you could just dock your Switch and get the same experience. Seems to me that streaming should be a worthwhile thing that Nintendo should be looking into and maybe even investing in. Now remember, Nintendo isn't perfect, and there's going to be bumps along the way, and as everyone else is diving in, there's been issues here and there. And again, not everyone's going to be able to handle a streaming service. Some of you have data caps, some of you just don't have fast enough internet, and even the minimum requirements also require that your ISP is not throttling you during peak hours. But still, I firmly believe that not only is game streaming a reality that's going to be existing here very soon across the board in video games, I think it's a reality Nintendo needs to embrace and embrace quickly before it leads to them just simply being left behind. The last thing you want to be is the blockbuster to the upcoming wave of Netflix. Remember, there's one Blockbuster store left in the entire world right now. One Blockbuster left when it used to dominate the entire movie space. You do not want to see Nintendo be in that position by ignoring game streaming moving forward. That being said, I'm Nathaniel Rumpeljans from Nintendo Prime, and I'm very interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on video game streaming, how it can apply to Nintendo, how Nintendo could offer something unique and different than what other companies are doing. Right now, it looks like Microsoft's got like a three-way service going on between Xbox Live and Game Pass, and then and we don't really know. Maybe Game Pass will end up tying into their project, xCloud. But and we don't know if Sony is going to expand beyond their classic library to current gen games. I think it only makes sense. It's clear AAA third-party companies are willing to do this, like Ubisoft and Capcom. I'm sure EA is willing to go down this route as well in the future. I think this is definitely something Nintendo should be exploring and should find a way to make possible, even if it's not fully integrated in the current Switch, maybe a future Switch or a future platform. If Nintendo finds themselves behind, I do worry that they're just going to be overtaken in a hurry when it comes to video game delivery and reaching the most consumers they can with their games. I'm not saying Nintendo needs to offer their streaming service across a multitude of devices. Maybe they can even create their own little Roku stick that people can plug into their TVs and enjoy it that way. Whatever Nintendo needs to do, it's on them to get on board. And the fact that Nintendo of Japan's allowing it to happen in there gives me hope that Nintendo realizes there is an important future here that Nintendo should be part of. And again, it does not mean physical games go away, digital games go away, physical hardware goes away. Really, all it means is more options for gamers to choose the way they want to game in what has been traditionally an extremely expensive entertainment medium. All right, folks. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you dislike it, that's all right. Hit that dislike button. Subscribe for more content, and I'll catch everyone in the next one.